Okay. All right, members, any other questions on this issue? Mr. Natoli, you had a question?
No, sir.
Okay. Members, on this issue, what's the pleasure of the council? Move it, Ms. Johnston, second. Mr. Fiorini? Mr. Fiorini says second. Okay, discussion, comments, questions. Okay, members, on this RRP4, let's start with Mr. Johnston.
Abstain.
Fiorini, aye.
Eisenberg, aye.
Totally aye.
Okay, we've got 4-0, one abstention. Okay, that passes. All right, now, Mr. Knopp, Mr. Ray, Mr. Stevens. I think I just want to make sure we're not missing any bells and whistles to this part of the process. And I don't know, Ms. Messer, you've been keeping the most extensive of notes and comments and suggestions and puzzles and queries and all of that. Would you all take a look at this and see if there's anything we have not done that we should have done before we move on to the next section? Going once, going twice. Let me just. Ms. Messer looks okay. Mr. Ray, anything you can think of?
No.
Okay. All right. Members, thank you very much for going through these matrix. Painful as it all is to go through a matrix like this, I think the process is better this way. We can understand the issues more clearly. And Ms. Metters will remind me again that comments during the stages of the process may not speed up the process, but they're better for the audience and the public too. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Members, let's go over, if we could please, to the last part of this section of the agenda, which is file item 6C, Final Delta Plan. And Ms. Messer, I guess you're starting off on this one?
I am. Thank you. All right. So just a quick reminder about this particular portion of the staff report. I know yesterday between the chair, our executive officer, and our chief deputy, you guys set the stage for what we'd be doing in the staff report, so I'll just quickly go through it again. Essentially what I'd like to do is quickly walk through the comments and summarize what we saw with the comments, then jump over to the staff recommended revisions, and as the chair has pointed out, a few times we'll be focused on the one attachment to this report, the council consent list. We'll also talk about some additional revisions that are not on this list. And then after discussion, questions about proposed revisions, I'll just speak to the process moving forward very quickly. And then I think we are hoping to wrap this up with direction and approval from the council as outlined in the staff proposed draft motion, or whatever the new title is for that.
Okay. Remember, so we have this consent list. There are, 39 items on it.
Yeah,
most appear to be highly technical. Before we take any action, I'm going to ask for any of you who have questions about these things to raise the question. We'll ask the audience to see if they have any comments, and then we'll go to a vote. So on council members, on these 39 items, are there any that jump out and bite you? Or some variation on that?
Mr. Chair.
Don?
Page 3.
Page 3?
Yes.
Okay, which one?
Item 14.
Item 14?
Was confusing to me. The text is Central Valley generally flushes the northern San Francisco Bay, very rarely the southern San Francisco Bay. So you're going to take out southern. So that's going to say very rarely the San Francisco Bay.
Yes, it won't say that. We'll clean it up a little bit more than that. Yes.
Again, I didn't know. Again, it's not a distinction geographically that I was familiar with, so that's what was confusing. Okay,
right.
So it'll just say San Francisco Bay.
Yes.
Not northern. So delete northern as well.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry, and I might defer to Carl on this one. My understanding was that we would leave northern San Francisco Bay in there. Is that correct, Carl?
Correct.
But we would take out, and we should have more language deleted, but we would take out that second reference. So.
Okay. Yeah. That Natoli guy's on this stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
If they're going to print it all up, I got to read some of it anyway. I won't say all of it.
Okay, other comments, questions, members? Two things I'm going to raise. Page 4, item 15, operations maintenance state water project. I do not object to the staff suggested changes,
Okay.
but it is not simply good enough to say that more employees, compensation at competitive levels is the sole, or imply that that is the sole problem for the state water project. Mr. Torgan at the Department of Water Resources announced in a speech not long ago that the maintenance budget costs of the state water project are going to double in short order. And that's, I personally believe, because it's difficult to charge contractors for an aggressive maintenance program when they're paying for so much else. But for me, I think the maintenance program is underfunded, and that is equally a problem. Somewhat is answered by the state, by the hiring issues, but not entirely. So, for example, the fairly ignoring the undulations in the Central Valley State Water Project pipes that have been caused by land subsidence and thus resulting in required pumping of water at a greater cost for the project and lack of full use of the capacity of the existing project now, is one of the things that could be done in short order, costly to be sure, but it could be done in short order to increase the efficiency of the project for more water reliability. So I'm not going to object to these changes, but as you talk about this issue, I think you ought to give a little further discussion and clarity on that issue. Number 2, on page 5, line 18, the El Dorado Irrigation District says that, well, they shouldn't plan for a possible interruption of Delta water supplies up to 36 months because, gosh, they don't have anything to do with Delta water supplies and wouldn't be affected. This is under our general authority, a statutory obligation to promote statewide water conservation, water efficiencies. And in my judgment, every water district in California, wherever they are situated, has a constitutional duty to use water reasonably and not waste water. And if anybody thinks that the weather problems we're going through now are just a momentary aberration and won't repeat themselves, they're nuts. And so the notion that you do a revision, I think you should revise it, but I think you should point out that the obligation to conserve water, the obligation to use water efficiently, is both a constitutional duty statewide and is a statewide obligation given to us to promote all of that on a statewide basis. And I don't want to leave the impression that only downstream water users have to do this, which means you can change the language, but let's emphasize what the statute told us to do, which is water conservation, water efficiency. Those are my points. Randy?
Well, I was going to make it an educational moment, but I'll pass in the interest of
Okay. All right, you did the magic words, and there are 25 people or more in the room. Randy was just anointed by a very prominent water blogger who's the science writer for the Albuquerque Journal as one of California's water management what was it? Water management policy experts, public water experts, and it's a guy named John Fleck who used to report for the Los Angeles Times and has been in Albuquerque now for years. And Randy, in his interview with the Modesto Bee, actually managed to explain as clearly as can be explained some complicated stuff that impressed a blogger and impressed me too, and he ought to do more of it. So congratulations. All right. Anything else?
Well, I'll continue with what I was going to say then.
There's your educational moment, Randy.
Upstream water agencies, like it or not, are going to be linked to a catastrophe in the Delta. It may not, and it may be a result of an executive order asking upstream operators to release more water than they would ordinarily plan to do for in-stream flows in support of flushing the delta. And I think that reality needs to be included in water management plans, and most upstreamers have not really thought this part of a catastrophic failure response. So I think we should leave that in.